Good morning, Metropolitan Culture Corner familia. Buenos dias. I hope your summer is off to a lovely start. Summer in Catalonia, summer in Spain means music and music festivals. So our guest this month is particularly appropriate. Patricia Caicedo is a soprano and musicologist whose academic and creative work centers on Latin American and Iberian art song. She has studied in Colombia, in the US, and in Spain. She holds a PhD in musicology from the Universidad Complutense de Madrid and a medical doctor's degree from the Escuela Colombiana de Medicina. This woman is a dynamo when it comes to performing, when it comes to research, when it comes to education. She was a visiting scholar at the Center for Iberian and Latin American Music at the University of California, Riverside. She regularly gives lectures and master classes at music conferences and universities around the world, from Argentina to Hungary to Washington, D.C. Aside from her public speaking engagements and her educational initiatives, she has published multiple books as well as scholarly editions of musical scores. Because aside from the academic side of her work, she is also a touring and recording artist who has released 11 albums and has performed concerts in a long list of countries all around the globe. She's also the founder and the director of the Barcelona Festival of Song, which celebrates its 20th anniversary this month. As if all of that weren't enough, she is also the creator of the company Mundo Arts, a music publishing house, an independent record label, and an online store. Patricia is also the host of the podcast Latin American and Iberian Art Song, in which she interviews composers, musicologists, other international experts. The list of things that she's accomplished is amazing, and all of it has been fueled by this passion, this love of this particular style of music, and the desire to share it with the world. Please welcome Patricia Caicedo to the Metropolitan Culture Corner.
I'm very aware of our mortality. I think about death every day, not as something horrible, but as a force to work, to do things, to let to the next people.
First, welcome to the Metropolitan Culture Corner. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Tori. I'm excited about this.
Well, we're excited to have you because you've done so much. You've studied music theory, musicology, you sing and speak in all these languages, you've published academic books, books of poetry. But at some point before all of these incredible things that you've done and accomplished, something drew you to start singing, to start playing piano, to start music in general. What sparked your interest in music? Was it a big part of your life growing up?
Yes, so it was my dad, who is a big music lover. He's not a musician, but he loves music, and he wanted always to be a pianist himself, but he wasn't. He was an architect. So when I was 5 years old, he brought me to the conservatory to study music theory and piano, and we were classmates. So we started studying at the conservatory together for about 5 or 6 years, but I was 5 until my 10 years old with my dad.
That's wonderful.
So this is how music came into my life, and also I was surrounded by music all the time because he's a big fan of music. So I was surrounded by especially classical music and jazz, that is his passion, at home. But of course, I was born in Colombia, and at the school and in other environments I listened to Latin American folk music, so I had these two influences.
That was another question that I had. These days, you're known for promoting traditional folk music and art song specifically. So what drew you to falling in love with art song as opposed to a different style of music? And also, could you explain what art song is in case someone doesn't know?
Yes, that's a very good question, because most of the people, they don't know what it is referring to when talking about art song. This is a genre, it's a kind of music that comes from especially the German-speaking countries of the 19th century, when countries were looking for what made them unique in the nationalistic period. So composers at the time, 19th century, like Schubert or Schumann or Wolf, they started composing short songs for voice and piano, but set into music the poems of their greatest poets, Goethe or Schilling, because they thought that what made them unique was language, and language is higher expression. That was poetry. So they chose their greatest poets and set them to music in short compositions for voice and piano. But of course, those guys, they were academically trained, they were classical musicians, so those were songs for this setting of chamber music, and it's a very intimate genre. The name originally was Lied. Lied is a German word that means song. So this model of the Lied songs for voice and piano became a genre that is spread from Germany to the rest of the world, because at that time Central Europe was the center of the world. It spread to the colonies and to the other countries, including the Americas and Spain too. So our composers in the Americas started composing also songs for voice and piano, but later on started incorporating our own poets, setting to music our own poets in Spanish, in Portuguese, and in the United States also composers start setting to music poets from there. So this became a genre and style. And when classical singers are trained, they are trained to sing opera, oratorium, that is the music for church, and lied, this genre. And in English, the word for that is art song, or in Spanish is canción de cámara or canción de concierto. So this is the kind of song we are talking about when we are referring to art song. But of course, I also criticize this name of art song because it's a little pretentious, because it's implying that the only art song is that song and the rest of songs are folk or popular. So this distinction between art song, folk, and popular song was born at that same time in the 19th century from the centers of power to describe their own musical productions as art, and the productions of the others, the peripheries, as mere popular songs. So it had some power struggles there in this definition. So I believe actually in only one word, that is song, that includes all expressions equally valid and beautiful.
Inherent in the title, yeah, it implies that this music is better than folk music, for example.
Exactly, and it's not.
But you seem to have fallen in love with this kind of music for personal reasons, or artistic reasons. What is it that you love about this style of music?
I fell in love with it because I grew up, and when I was a teenager and until my 20s, let's say, singing folk Latin American music. When I started singing at the age of 12 or 11, I started just singing folk music, the music I love, popular music from Latin America. But then many years after, when I entered in the conservatory to study classical voice, to be a classical singer, that music disappeared completely. And I suddenly started only studying, that is the curriculum of a classical singer, a German song, French song, an Italian song. And I was wondering, but why, if I'm in Colombia, why is not Colombian or Latin American song or a Spanish song in my curriculum? So thanks to one of my first teachers who introduced me to one song by an Argentinian composer, an art song by Alberto Ginastera, I discovered, this is what I want to sing, because these kind of songs put together the elements of what we know as folk music and elements of what we know as classical music, the two universes that were surrounding me during my upbringing. So that's how this is what I want to sing.
At this point, you have 11 albums, but when you first started recording, were you already in love with this style of music, or did that come later?
Yes, my first recording, that's many years ago now, 2005 probably, or before, who knows. But yeah, it was called Lead Art Songs of Latin America, to make clear to the people that, it's lead, but it's from Latin America. There are two concepts that people not often linked, because they have this prejudice or preconceptions that link Latin America only with folk or popular music, and they didn't know that there exists also a classical production of music.
In the same way that they don't automatically associate Latin America with art song, also a lot of people don't associate classical music or art song with female composers, and you've also been a big proponent of women composers. Is that something that also has always been an interest of yours, or over time did you just say to yourself, where are the women here?
It was something like that, but also because I always align with the weaker. I have this tendency of trying to align with the weaker. So part of promoting and devoting myself to promoting Latin American and Iberian composers and songs was because I felt that they were not recognized enough. That was unfair. So that's what I was also committed to promoting them. But with women even more, because even when I was growing up, when I was thinking in composers, unconsciously I associated only with men. Because when you see composers, it's like Beethoven, Bach, there are all those guys, men. And I never thought that women, they were not part of what we were taught or listened to. So once I got that awareness long ago, I started also looking for them and doing research to find their music, and also commissioning living composers, female composers, to write new works to sing.
When you're performing a work or recording a work that's being debuted for the first time, what is that experience like? Do you feel a sense of responsibility, or is it just so exciting and that's it?
It's always excited for me. Sorry, I'm saying this, but it's so boring singing the same music that everybody sings. And this happens for all classical singers who are taught to sing the same pieces by Schubert, by Schumann, by Mozart, by Wagner, and everybody sings the same things over and over and over. So this for me is very boring. That's why I would like to sing music that people don't know and never have been published or recorded or sung. So this is exciting to just decode and understand this new music and make it mine. And also with the new music, when it's composed a new piece, it's always a process of incorporating that in your body and in your emotional experience to do your own honest, unique interpretation. Other person probably will perceive it different and do it different, but that's always exciting to discover new songs.
You've described studying music, you're performing, you're recording, and you're working with composers. But then you haven't only limited yourself to pursuing a career path as a performer. You also have this didactic and educational side. You've written books, monographs, you've had residencies, you've given master classes. What drew you to this musicological academic side too, and not only dedicate yourself to performance alone?
Because it's a need. I mean, I couldn't do one without the other. Why? If I would be just a performer singing the same pieces, I don't need to do research. But if I want to record or perform pieces that never had been published or performed by composers that are unknown, etc., I have to do research. It's a requirement. Just finding these new treasures, and then the natural step is to perform them. And then at the beginning, many years ago, I was doing all that just for me, in a very egoistic, selfish way. So I want to sing this and be the only one. But after a few years, I realized that this is so huge. This repertoire is immense. It's a treasure. It's a huge repertoire. I would need many lifetimes to really do all that. And so I understood that I need to do this, not for me, but for the others, to publish the music so other singers and voice teachers can access it. I discovered at some point that I have a mission, and my mission is recuperating and preserving this repertoire, promoting this repertoire and composers, with the ultimate goal of this music enters in the curriculums of classical singers around the world. That nowadays there are completely Eurocentric, colonialistic curriculums anchored in the music of the centers of power and ignoring the rest of the musics of the world. So to achieve that mission, just singing was not enough, because the music disappears in the moment that it's created. It's ephemeral. So if I would like to create a legacy and to try to change something in the structures, I would have to do research, publish, teach, and prepare a set of tools and resources to give to the next generation so they can continue. When I die, this heritage is safe.
When you're speaking at these universities and conferences and things, you're not only speaking about the artistic approach to this body of work, you're also talking about historical and cultural importance of all these composers that aren't so well known.
At the end, in my doctoral dissertations as a musicologist, is understanding how, by observing the art song of a specific moment or period, and by observing the evolution of art songs, you can observe the evolution of the conformation in national identity in different countries. So song and identity are very linked. For what I teach or what I share with people is this understanding that goes beyond music to enter into culture and to who we are.
Who we are on a national level when it comes to where we're from and our roots, but also you've done research on exploring the connection between music and health and cognitive function and who we are as human individuals as well. Do you feel like the research that you've done when it comes to music and health is parallel or connected to the connections that people feel on more of an identity level?
So, that's a good question. My first career, as soon as I graduated from high school, I went to study medicine and I graduated as a medical doctor. Although after I graduated, I started studying voice at the conservatory. And at a certain point, I decided I would only like to devote myself to music and abandon the practice of medicine, take the chance to follow my dream, becoming a musician, full-time musician. But many years after, when I was studying the performance practice, how we perform and the environment of art song, and looking for a more contextualized way of performing, I entered, without looking for it, into the study of cognition, because cognition Nowadays is studied the 4 E's of cognition, that is extended, embedded, enacted, and embodied. So through the embodiment and all these things, I start studying cognition, and without noticing, I was again back in my medical training, but I went back through song and music. So it seemed as everything at the end of the day is making sense and closing a circle. And so that's why I wrote this book about music and health, something that I thought was disconnected. Now I know that it's all just part of one.
And what did you find? Your book is called in Spanish, but it's like you are what you listen to, no?
No, the book is in English too. Yeah, actually, people have read it more in the US. It's called We Are What We Listen To, The Impact of Music on Individual and Social Health. And it has historical aspects about trying to find this relationship between music and health going back thousands of years, and them understanding what happens in the brain of the musicians when they are performing, or also the brain of the listeners, and the many benefits that music has for our brain. And also, but especially, music as a social glue to create communities as part of our identity. The music that we listen to identifies us, links us to a group, to a social class, to a historical moment. There are many aspects that you can connect.
Yeah, and music, it is very much a community exercise, because if you're just singing alone in your house, it's a very different experience than when people are identifying with what you're doing. I know you're also the founder of the Barcelona Festival of Song, which is 20 years old this year. Congratulations. Did you begin this festival because you wanted to reinforce this sense of community, or because you wanted to showcase this kind of music, or what was the motivation?
Since I already mentioned that I have a mission,
yes,
there is a strategy to achieve that mission. So that strategy is like I try to create a virtuous cycle that starts with research, performance, recording, publishing, teaching. And one of the parts of this cycle is creating spaces for other singers to learn this music and to acquire the tools and resources, and also having spaces for performing. So the festival is just that. It has two components: academic course of history and interpretation of Latin American and art song in Spanish, in Catalan, and in Portuguese, for classical singers. All professional singers who come to Barcelona come from the US, most of them, or Canada, Australia, and they come to learn this music, to learn the diction of the languages, to learn the style of interpretation, etc. So we have 10 days of classes. But parallel, the other component of the festival is a concert series for the public, people of Barcelona. So this year the festival starts in only 5 days from today, on July 5th. It's a huge celebration. We have 9 concerts. We have 2 exhibitions, one art exhibition and one exhibition that the Biblioteca de Catalunya, the National Library of Catalonia, organized an exhibition about these 20 years of history that is already since June the 14th until July 20th is open, so people can go to the National Library, enjoy that beautiful building and the exhibition. And we have the concerts. The concerts will be amazing. People can see that on the Barcelona Festival of Song website. And most of the concerts, 8 out of 9 are free entrance, and one is paying, but it's because it's the super exclusive event and unique event that we are doing for the first time. It's a concert in a sailboat for only 50 people, because this is our way of celebrating 20 years, toasting with a glass of cava and listening to music while navigating for 2 hours.
All this is all really beautiful and exciting, but it's a lot of organization, right? So have you had support from the local community, from the local governments, private or public institutions that help you guys make this possible?
So that's a very good question. I received support in spaces and some resources, but no money. Until now, never have had a grant.
This seems like a project that would be an obviously interesting project to these kinds of entities that give grants and things. It just seems like such an obvious choice, like of course this one. So it's been difficult.
Yes, it's been difficult. Also because it's me organizing everything, and also writing those grants and things takes a lot of time, and I have so many things: writing books, singing, organizing the festival, traveling a lot.
Yeah.
many things. So this is also a limitation, the fact that I have on my shoulders most of the organization. But we have received support from the Biblioteca de Catalunya, the National Library, that is our home. I mean, the place where we present the concerts, and it's a unique historical place with the piano that belonged to Enrique Granados, for example, one of the greatest composers. We use that piano that was Granados pianos. We have the support of the Real Cercle Artístic, the CSIC, the Center of the Investigaciones Científicas, where we have the classes, the Taller de Músics that also give us some spaces for practicing for the students, Ayuntamiento de Barcelona that helps with the promotion of the concerts. So there are many institutions who along the years have taken part and support the festival to help us arrive to our 20th anniversary.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Gracias.
You know, of all the places that you visited, spreading the gospel of this body of work of music, of all the places that you travel now, that you play, that you sing, you've chosen out of all those places Barcelona to have this festival, to have your home. So what is it about Barcelona that attracted you or that keeps you here as an artist, as an academic, as a professional?
I don't know, I like the vibe of Barcelona, and also the fact that it's a place where many people and cultures cross. And also it made all sense to develop this project here, because at the beginning of the last years of the 19th and beginning of the 20th century, there was a singer here that did something kind of similar. It was a Catalan singer whose name was Conchita Badia. And she debuted many of the art songs by Catalan composers of the time. She was friends with Granados, with Toldrà, Montpou, the great names of the Catalan art song. But because of the Spanish Civil War, she exiled with her family in Argentina for many years. And she started singing the Argentinian art song and some other pieces of Latin American art song. And when returning to Barcelona, she started promoting Latin American art song here. She came back in the 40s and she lived until the 70s or so. When I got here, I had no role model, not any. All classical singers were discouraging me for doing that. They said, oh, you have to sing opera, and then when you are famous singing opera, you can sing those little songs. But once, after my first concert here in Barcelona, an old woman came to greet me and say, oh, I'm so emocionada, so touched, because my mom used to sing those songs. So I said, who was her mom? Because if she's very old now, her mom probably was long time ago. Who was her mom? So her mom was Conchita Badias. At the time I was looking for sheet music, and it was very hard to find. And then when I went to her house, suddenly I had access to many songs and resources that I had been looking for years and not finding. They were waiting for me here in Barcelona.
I love that.
Kind of a destiny.
And then you took that further because with your publishing company,
Mundo Arts,
you've made a lot of this music available to the public on sheet music.
Exactly, for other singers, because I hope when I die, other singers continue.
This is really, as you said, a legacy that you're leaving behind, that you haven't left behind yet, but that you'll leave behind.
Y muchas gracias, Tori.
De nada, ha sido un placer.
Ha sido un placer, sí, también hablar contigo.
Thank you so much, Patricia, for taking the time to talk to us here on the Metropolitan Culture Corner, especially as you are right in the middle of preparations for this huge festival. Best of luck and hope to see you on stage soon. Metropolitan Culture Corner Familia, tune in next month for more behind-the-scenes interviews with yet another of the incredible individuals from Barcelona's arts and culture scene. And if you have time, starting this Friday, please make sure to look up the concerts that Patricia mentioned in the Barcelona Festival of Song. As she said, 8 of the 9 concerts are free. You have no excuse to not go and check out at least one of them. We are very lucky that we live in a city where there's all kinds of cultural stuff going on at all times. You've got to take advantage, okay? Okay. And for my part, I will see you next month on the Metropolitan Culture Corner.